Hey, hi, hello! You know what I like? Words. In fact, I like words so much I invented a time machine to travel back in time to get the copyright to all things words. Don't believe me? Well, have a look at this! Pretty cool, right? Unfortunately, the copyright's pretty useless on its own. If only there was some kind of way to store words so I could refer back to them later. Huh. Video games are pretty cool, but sometimes there's just a bit too much to remember in them. This is where the internet comes in. Pretty cool place, don't know if you've heard of it. Has some pretty cool people you can follow for entertainment, but it's also home to many guides. Whenever you don't know what to do next, just whip out an internet browser, search how to unlock Pugsy in Super Mario Kart, read the Wikipedia preview, this isn't what I wanted. Yes, the video game guide, home to many words including this and this and this. And if you're really sick of words, you can always just use a video walkthrough or guide here on YouTube. Peasants! But it wasn't always like that. Back in the good old days when I was just a wee lad, the internet was only just starting to get big, meaning I had no idea what the heck an enter button even was. Back in those days, we had to keep track of all the necessary information of games we played ourselves, hence the power of taking notes. Now, unfortunately, I don't have any of my old notes anymore. I was an extremely messy kid, left loose sheets of paper all over my room. Parents didn't like that, threw them all away, so I guess it's time for yet another playthrough of Rayman on the Game Boy Color. That was actually pretty good timing. Yes, one of the classic examples of taking notes for video games are password systems. Back in the olden days, many games didn't have save files. So to make it so people could still keep their progress, developers included password systems in their games. And they were annoying. You had to keep track of all of them because you didn't want to accidentally game over or have something happen to all your progress like your battery running out or a sudden power surge. It was a lot of work, but it was worth it, damn it! The main game I played a lot as a kid that had one of these was, well, what you've been looking at for the last minute or so. It's Rayman on the Game Boy Color. This game is actually pretty good. It hits a lot of the same beats as the original Rayman, but at a lower difficulty with a better reward for getting 100%, and, interestingly enough, 8-bit remixes of Rayman 2 songs for its soundtrack. Have a listen. Pretty cool, right? I had to replay this game a lot as a kid, seeing how, like I mentioned before, my family would just throw away the loose sheets of paper that I wrote the passwords down on. The frustrating thing about this was that these passwords could contain both lowercase l's and uppercase i's, which made the passwords kinda tricky to figure out. This wasn't really a common issue with passwords though. In fact, a lot of old password systems worked around this kind of thing. For example, the Mega Man games had these grids that you would put little dots on, and it would translate those to passwords. And Metroid got around this by using different colors for the lowercase letters and the uppercase letters. Speaking of Metroids, some games had password systems with interesting results, like the famous Justin Bailey password. A lot of these passwords were actually unintentional, because games that had them generally just used some kind of algorithm to determine if a password was correct or not. If you could figure out these algorithms, you could make a lot of different cool passwords. For example, you can use the phrase butthole in Rambo on the NES. Oh. Yeah, let's move on to something else. If you want to know more about these password systems though, I have an excellent video in the card up top made by a YouTube channel called TheZZAZZGlitch that goes into excruciating detail on how they work. There were plenty of other things I kept track of as a kid. One such thing was Pokemon. One of my goals as a kid was always to get a complete Pokédex in Pokemon Ruby. In order to accomplish that, I kept track of what Pokemon I still needed to get on paper. I'd play through the game, and every single time a trainer had something I didn't have, I'd write it down and hunt for it throughout the entire game world until I found it. As a kid, I could never get further than about 90% of the regional decks, but 10 years, 2 playthroughs through Hoenn, 3 playthroughs through Fire Red and Leaf Green, 1 playthrough of Pokemon Colosseum, 1 playthrough of Pokemon XD, and some help from Serio.net later, and I finally did it, damn it. Wait. Yeah, it seems these days there really isn't much use for pen and paper with games anymore. The internet's just much more resourceful, much faster, much more efficient. Another example of this kind of thing has to do with Metroid and Zelda on the NES. You see, these old games didn't really have great map systems, so what people would do to get around it was to just draw them themselves. And whilst this is awesome to me, it's definitely something I do in my free time, there honestly is no real reason to anymore. The internet just replaces these kinds of things. Dang. That's right, this game. This absolute masterpiece of a game. I played this for the first time last year on my Vita, and it quickly became my favorite game of all time. And part of that is simply because of this. Yes, I took a lot of notes in this game. You see, half of Persona 4 is living your everyday life. Going to school, managing your friendships, knowing when all your social links are available so you can improve your bonds with them, all that good stuff. Oftentimes you get tests in school, and this is what I took notes for in my playthrough. I wrote down most information given in class myself, so I could refer back to it whenever I'd get a test. You see, doing well in school gives you style points with all your school friends, as well as your uncle and Nanako, the most wholesome character to ever grace my TV, she must be protected! But doing so improves your bonds with them, giving you some cool rewards and better abilities and personas to use in dungeons. Now, I could have just looked up a guide and done everything perfectly on my first playthrough, but honestly, I feel like that would have ruined the entire experience for me. Yes, the Persona series is the perfect example of a modern game series that becomes truly special if you put some effort into it yourself. If you wish to experience what it was like to play a game with pen and paper next to you, play Persona 4 Golden. It's my favorite game specifically because of this aspect, and you wouldn't believe how happy I was when it arrived on PC, for this cheap as well. So, that's what it is like to have to take notes for video games. It was cool when it was still relevant, but unfortunately nowadays there really isn't much reason to still do so. So, yeah, there really isn't much use for this whole word copyright thing, I guess. You know what? I'll go back in time to change everything so everyone can use words again. Shit, you mean to tell me this wasn't a time machine?